Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture and Justice League Monday. We have gotten up to Justice League number 3, which is continuing last month's story. Well, I say last month for these, last week for us. And before I go much further, please excuse my voice. I know it's a little hoarse. Been dealing with a cold. But I had to get some videos recorded, so again, please bear with me. So we've been continuing this story that started where a group of superheroes from another world, Blue Jay, Silver Sorceress, and Wandjina, who are from older Justice League comics. They were called the Champions of Angor. They were essentially a takeoff of the Avengers. So Wandjina would be Thor, Silver Sorceress would be the Scarlet Witch, Blue Jay would be Ant-Man. So they've now come to our world after theirs was destroyed by a nuclear war. And it is their goal to eliminate all nuclear weapons and such from planet Earth. And of course, they're going about it in a way that would probably be very likely to cause a nuclear war. But they've seen everybody on their planet die. They're not necessarily all that rational. And so with the cover, we see the Justice League surrounded by the Rocket Red Squadron Brigade. I can't remember what they called it, but they are the Soviet Union's heroes in mechanized armor. So let's jump into the book, Justice League Meltdown. We have a plot and breakdowns by Keith Giffen, script by J.M. DeMatteis, pencils Kevin Maguire, inks Al Gordon, letters Bob Lappin, colors Gene D'Angelo, editor Andy Helfer. Special thanks to Terry Austin, just for being Terry Austin. And this comes from 1987, so we're still a little ways away from the end of the Soviet Union. Does figure heavily into this. Now, what we have here is like Generalissimo, or Colonel Ruman Harjavti, who is the leader of Bialya. He was intended as sort of a Colonel Gaddafi sort of character, and he has given sanctuary to these three who had last issue made an attack in the Middle East. And they're realizing that they don't necessarily trust this guy. They kind of know that this is not a good dude, but what else is there to do given their situation, what they must do? And so he has now convinced them that the thing to do is to attack the nuclear sites in the Soviet Union. While he's speaking in his language, they're speaking in, well, presumably English, I guess. And so he's telling them, yes, you must attack this place and blah, 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 blah. Blue Jay says, does this self-serving little jerk think we're buying this? And Wandjina says, doesn't matter. Look at that map. This Soviet Union is a sprawling land of nuclear death. Thank you so much for helping us, Colonel. So they're going to make this attack. He thinks it's going to be a pathway for him to gain victory over the whole world. Meanwhile, the Justice League is just outside his airspace in the bug. And Guy Gardner, of course, is PO'd that they didn't follow the Champions of Angor into Bialya. And, Batman's going, no, it would have been an international incident, would have been a bad idea. For all of his complaining, Batman says, Gardner, shut your eternally yapping mouth before he can continue. He is interrupted by the Blue Beetle, whose radar is picking up the three superhumans, and they're flying on, presumably, to do something crazy. And we actually do get, I'll back it up a little bit. We get kind of a nice exchange between Batman and Blue Beetle. as Blue Beetle says something to the extent of, we're hovering outside Balian airspace, and for how many, he goes, I don't know how many hours we've been doing this. Batman replies, 9.2 hours. Well, thank you, Mr. Spock. Pardon me? Just a little joke, Bats. Spare me the humor, Beetle. This is serious business. So on the next page, though, as Batman tells him to proceed, he says, okay, then, Sulu, warp 7. Hey, everybody, Batman made a funny. Batman made a funny. Don't push your luck, Beetle. Sorry, Bats. Always nice when they can actually give Batman a little personality, since for most of his existence, he actually had a little bit of personality. It was only later that he becomes a little bit more serious all the time. So they take off after the Champions and suddenly slam to a halt in midair. Exactly what do you think you're doing? Hitting the brakes, that's what. Why? Perhaps one of us should pilot the Bug. I would, but I don't have my license yet. You all right, Dr. Light, etc. So, and Guy Gardner fell on top of Black Canary. He's going to get himself killed, either by by her or by the Green Arrow. But basically, the reason he slammed on the brakes is they were heading into Soviet airspace. So this is bad. As Batman says, it's bound to be interpreted as a U.S. attack. And John Jones says, yeah, especially after the recent incident with the Green Lantern Corps. That was, a few months earlier in that book. There was a whole storyline involving the Soviet Union, and Guy Gardner made his presence known in the Soviet Union at that point, and they don't particularly like him. And of course, he doesn't particularly care. And so Beetle says to Batman, you're not thinking of going in there. I mean, what if we're shot down? Do you know how much the Bug cost me? So we now switch to the Rocket Reds. They, looking over the Soviet territory, it's obviously wintertime. There's all sorts of snow. And they get the orders. There are invaders in Soviet airspace, intruders. Coordinates are being fed through now. Let us proceed, the Rocket Red Brigade. Oh, there we go, brigade. And as one of them says, and God help whoever gets in our way. Dmitri, yes, Alexei, we're not supposed to believe in God. Oh, that's right. So here we have the Champions of Angor. They're going in. And the Bug has decided, not the Bug, but the Justice League has decided they've got to go in and stop them, because this could cause a major, not just international incident, but perhaps World War III. Nice little bit down here with, Black Canary and Blue Beetle are discussing Russia. And I've always had a thing for Russian literature, Russian composers. Ever read The Brothers Karamazov? Twice, 3 times for me. So they're having a pleasant little chat. Meanwhile, the Rocket Reds are coming in, they're coming in hot. They're getting ready to kick some butt. They actually sound more like the gung-ho Americans at that point. And so the Bug does fall under attack, and Guy Gardner is delighted. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Gardner, stay right where you are. Well, of course, Gardner's not going to do that. He's coming out. He says, slice Stallone, eat your heart out, because it's time for America's greatest hero to kick some commie butt again. So, of course, he's going to make everything worse. Now, listen, I mean, they were under attack, so, And, of course, they see him coming, and it's like, oh, not him again. So he goes into battle with them. They send Captain Marvel out to try to bring Gardner back in. And, of course, Marvel's going to come under attack as well. We switch to the Kremlin and Gorbachev, who's still the premier at that point, and discussing what's going on, and this is a hell of a job, blah, blah, blah. And he decides, reroute them, end all hostilities toward the Justice League. Our main concern is protecting our missile sites. I think the Justice League will prove useful to us. So they're going to bring their guys back in. Meanwhile, in the middle of combat, here's one of the missile sites And, they're all preparing basically for the coming of these characters, these strangers who have already attacked nuclear sites. So they're shutting down a nuclear reactor. So Marvel ends up fighting these guys as well because they don't really give them a choice. They decide to send Mr. Miracle out. He's like, Batman's no one's a unnecessary force. I'm not the bloodthirsty type Batman. So open up the hatch. He flies out of there. And at this point, they're figuring out at one of these power plants, they shut down too quickly. The water levels are dropping. The core of the reactor will be exposed, and we are all dead men. Now, this is right around the time, of course, of the Chernobyl accident. And so, obviously, a little bit of inspiration from that here. So, John Jones finally gets out there, grabs Guy Gardner, throws him in the bug. Dr. Light has to deal with him a little bit. They're attacking Mr. Miracle, who was doing his best to not get into a fight. He sends Black Canary out because one of the Rocket Reds is on top of the bug. She kind of gets hit as soon as she goes out, and she's really not happy. Just for that, you get the Sonic Scream treatment, but good. And so, and then she knocks the dude out as well. Black Canary is kind of an ass kicker. And you know what? She was an ass kicker in the 1940s when she first premiered in the Golden Age. So that's very accurate to the character. So back and forth fighting, Mr. Miracle finally has to use a grenade on one of these guys. Runs into these guys. Hey, fellas. You may not believe this, but I don't want to fight with you, and I really don't want you fighting with me. At the point, they say, we've been told to step down and ask for your help, because they now know about the meltdown that's imminent. The Champions of Angor are surrounded by Rocket Reds, and they're all discovering that this thing's about to go as well. The Silver Sorceress, please, I'm begging you, let us come through. Let us help. If you lend your strength to ours, if all the super beings on this world banded together, we could save this planet in a day. The Rocket Red replies, if you believe that, then you really must be from another planet or another world. Now this is your last warning. Leave or... And they decide to attack. And she's like, no, because it becomes obvious something horrible's happening. They're all aware of it now. And Guy Gardner's attitude is, let's just leave. Then we take care of those guys. We take care of the Ruskies. What's the problem? Of course, Mr. Miracle is horrified by this. Why, you arrogant, insensitive idiot. Don't you realize the magnitude of what? The hell with the Miracle. Beetle, bring us down. Maybe we can be of some use. So they come down, and at this point, it's pretty obvious there's nothing. Nothing will protect us, Alexei. Nothing at all. Things are going really bad here. Wandjina makes a decision. And so he whips everybody out of the way, like with a great hurricane sort of wind, and flies directly into the reactors. They're like, oh no, let me go after him. He'll die. Miss, there's nothing you can do. Nothing any of us can do. And, why did we come here? Why didn't we leave well enough alone? And the Rocket Red there says, this is all your fault. Our fault? You people can't control your own technology. And you have the gall to blame us. Well, it is her fault, to be honest. Well, their fault. All of a sudden, Martian Manhunter says, wait, listen. I don't hear anything. That's just it. Whatever was going on in there, it stopped. And Wandjina comes out, yes, stopped. Everyone is safe. I managed to, and he collapses. So ambulances ultimately arrive, taking the champions away. And the Justice League has been let known, your permission to be here has been rescinded. Get out. Hey, they can't just scratch at Marvel. They just did. So the Justice League, in fact, does leave. Pretty amazed at what they've seen. And Batman, kind of explains, look, the Russians are sorely lacking in superheroes in their scramble to avoid a superhuman gap with the West. They've no choice but to follow up every possibility. In other words, yeah, they've kind of imprisoned those three, and they're probably going to try to use them at some point. But they get a surprise when they go into their headquarters, and that surprise is Maxwell Lord, who thought he'd just drop by your secret headquarters to introduce you to your newest member, Booster Gold. Next, Gold in the Hills. We got Booster. We got Blue Beetle. They're not a team yet, but they're going to become one of the great teams of DC Comics, one of the most fun teams. So there we go. Justice League number 3. And what we see here is the team, and by that I mean the creative team, is setting things up. We're going to see more Rocket Reds. We're going to see the Champions of Angor again. There are going to be repercussions from this. And of course, we're starting, we've had a little arc here to see the team in action. So we're getting to know them a little bit. The introduction of Booster Gold next issue, of course, really launches things on its way. We're finding out more about Maxwell Lord and only a little bit more about him. There's a lot to discover there, and that's going to be a major storyline moving forward. So they're setting the groundwork. You don't know how many issues they were sort of guaranteed for this book, but they are setting the groundwork for many issues to come. So definitely the creative team was taking this seriously and trying to set up something great. Well, how about you? What do you think of Rocket to Russia with the Justice League number 3? Let me know in the comments what you think. I'd love to hear it. If you enjoyed this video, please like, maybe subscribe, maybe share with a friend. Every Monday in 2025, we are going through an issue of the Justice League, which will become the Justice League International, which will become the Justice League America and Justice League Europe, and on and on and on and on. So make sure you come back next Monday for another one of these. In the meantime, God bless everyone. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. And I will see you again, hopefully soon, and hopefully pretty soon with a better voice in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.